When it was really noisy during the height of the pandemic, stress, and people were at their wits' end and just threadbare. When I was feeling that way, I would just say to Megan, I'm going outside, I got to go out and be in my bees. And it seems counterintuitive that opening a box of things, there's 50,000 things that can possibly sting you inside that hive of bees. But it forces you to kind of zero in on that and focus on only that, and you have to tune out all that noise of the world around you. And so it became my form of therapy, and I know there are a lot of others who really, it was part of what helped us get through the stressful part of that last couple of years that we've all gone through. And just to dig in and just focus, I got to take care of this thing, and if I do it roughly, I'm going to get stung. And so it just forces you to get into that zone and get out of the world that can be really chaotic.
When we opened the Honey Exchange 10 years ago, if you wanted to become a beekeeper, you could find tools online, and you could certainly go talk to people, outside of the city at their barn or whatever to get your equipment. But we wanted to have a business that was a year-round business that was open 6 days a week during regular business hours. For people who had jobs, they could come after work, and they could come on the weekend, and they could talk to beekeepers.
So you want to know about classes? We usually publish the class schedule around Thanksgiving. So the beginner class, taking you from I don't know anything, which is where most of our beekeeping students come from. Now, once in a while, we have somebody who grew up going out with dad or granddad into the hives. And I choose those genders specifically because back in the day, it was mostly men, mostly old fat white guys. So I'm like the old demographic, and that has faded. Since we've offered the classes, 3/4 of the students have been women. So there's this very quickly changing demographic of who's a beekeeper, and it encompasses everybody.
We met when we were both living abroad. I was living in Barcelona, Spain, and Phil was living in Cork, Ireland. He was a Cornell student, and I was a UC Berkeley student, junior year. So we met when I was 20.
Kids, a couple of kids. At that time, we did not see bees in our future at all. The only interaction I had had with anybody who kept bees, I knew a guy in college who was a buddy of mine from upstate New York, and his parents were beekeepers, and I thought that's a really curious thing for just regular people to do. That seems like something I could get behind.
Phil was a stay-at-home dad, and I was in the wine industry technology business. And he came home one day and he's like, I think I want to be a beekeeper. Then he became a beekeeper, and about a year later, I became a beekeeper, and then I was tired of my job, and we were thinking, what can we do together? We want to work together. So then we opened the Honey Exchange. When you first walk into the Honey Exchange, you'll see this beautiful mural. Our daughter, Maura, painted this mural, and so she came up with this design, which is a meeting of the Norse goddess Freya with the Celtic Saint Gopnate. Everything was hand done, and I'm just super proud of it. And I think it is a welcoming, beautiful entryway for the Honey Exchange for all of our visitors to come and just feel good about being here right when they walk in the door.
I thought I might get sick of honey at some point. We're 10 years in now, and I still am just blown away. I like my coffee sweet, so I have coffee, honey in my coffee every morning.
Coffee Blossom Honey.
Coffee Blossom Honey is a great one to go into coffee.
Really good.
We love to entertain. Whenever we throw a dinner party, it starts with a platter of cheese and crackers and some pieces of honeycomb if we have it, or some liquid honey if we want to go that route.
I like the darker honey on salmon. Like I'll drizzle honey on salmon or scallops, and then maybe some white balsamic with honey dressing on that, just a little sprinkle on the top. Different honeys have very distinctive flavors.
Once I realized that honey is more than just that little squeezy bear that you get at the grocery store, it opened up this whole extra spice rack that I have when I want to cook, because it can have so many different flavors. You can have really dark, intense honeys or really pretty perfumed honeys, and depending on what you're cooking, you can choose any of those spices. It's really great. A swarm of bees. That phrase is used colloquially where like, they were on them like a swarm of bees, like it's a dangerous, angry thing.
Thanks, Hollywood.
In reality, a swarm is the hive's reproductive process. And so when a hive is thriving and successful, it wants to split itself in two like an amoeba would. And so it'll send the old queen with about 2/3 of the population of bees just out to seek their fortune in the world. While they're looking for that place to live, they're hanging around somewhere. Sometimes it's in a tree, sometimes it's on a fence post. I love being a swarm gatherer because you can just go out, Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I have to get stung a few times to get them down, but the easy ones, like you went and got that one out by the mall, just hanging right in front of a window of a restaurant.
It was like right here, there's a plate glass window, and everybody in the restaurant is like this on the other side. And I go walking up, wearing shorts and a t-shirt, flip-flops, put my veil on, put a little spritz of sugar water on there, get the box underneath it, bang them in. It goes off like a bee bomb, and then they all just settle back down. And you could literally hear from inside. Ah! It was so cool. And I'm like, that's right.
I'm just standing over the side. Like, yeah, that's my wife. Bees are important to our food systems. If you like to eat things from the grocery store, you need to realize that about 3/4 of the dollar value of a grocery store has been pollinated by bees. Everything from almonds to blueberries to cucumbers and pumpkins. You can't have a pumpkin without a bee. And even for people that aren't into their fruits and vegetables, even if you're just a cheeseburger guy, we still need bees to pollinate the crops for the grazing cattle and the dairy industry. So if you want to eat that, you still got to look after your bees. But the problem that the bees are having is that they've got a weakened immune system. There's so much garbage in their environment that they don't have the strength. And it's like when you're not well fed and well rested, you're more likely to come down with some sort of illness. And that's what's happening with the bees, is that they're under these tremendous pressures. A lot of habitat loss. There isn't as much land for the bees to forage in. The land that they do have to forage in, if it's a suburban environment, that might be a lot of people who are spraying to get that perfect green lawn that you can only get with chemicals. If they're in a rural environment, they might be going out to a cornfield where they're encountering biotech engineered corn. And it's not the best thing for them, and it makes them unhealthy. The easiest thing you can do to help is what you don't do. Don't feel the need to obsessively kill clover and dandelions. Those are two huge nutritional sources for bees in the early part of the season. It can be the difference between a hive that's struggling to come out of winter and maybe not even going to make it. Dandelions bloom, and now they've got plenty of food. They get pollen and nectar in tremendous abundance from those dandelions. It's the most important food for bees in the state of Maine, period. And so if you change your perspective about that, then you don't have to be dumping all those chemicals to get rid of those things. So just stop killing weeds, stop dumping chemicals. This is our observation hive. They're here all year round. Sometimes people wonder if we have to take them outside or we take them down for the winter. But there's a little pipe that runs through the wall, so you'll see them. They're flying around, going out to the neighborhood. Let's see if we can find a dancer in here. This girl here, she's going to circle around and she's going to waggle. Waggle, 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 and then she'll circle around clockwise and waggle, 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 and then she'll counterclockwise, waggle, waggle. And what she's saying is if the sun is at compass north, you need to travel at that angle away from the sun. And how long she waggles tells them how far they have to travel. So giving direction and distance in a dance. We got into this business because we had seen the trend line happening, and beekeeping was growing, and then we saw the pandemic coming around the corner, and we thought, all right, this is it. That's the thing. We're going to have to go and get serious jobs now. And then instead, we spent 18 months just playing catch up, because it turned out to be one of those things that people really connected with during the time when they were stuck in their homes, didn't have much to do, and so they were able to look after a hive. Some people took their job home, and so they were taking as much money home, but they didn't have as much to spend it on. We saw our numbers in beekeeping sales in 2020. There were some months we were up 90% over the prior year, which is just, it's outrageous. People were into gardening, they were into sourdough bread baking, and they were into beekeeping really big. Bees are not something you need to be scared of. Yes, they do have an ability to sting and they want to defend their family. But if you look at all the other things that bees do, once you take away the sting, that one negative thing, there's all kinds of cool stuff in there. Like the thing that I always try to teach kids is all the bees in that hive, they have no concern at all for themselves. They're only concerned about their community. And if you have a community of people or bees or whatever, where everybody's looking after everybody else, you don't need to worry about yourself. And so I try to teach that subject of empathy to kids, because I think maybe that's one of the things that we're lacking a little bit in our society.